And we are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the NPCs Weekly News Roundup. It is, oh God, I almost said March again, just like I did in the podcast this last week, Kyle. It's May
Nice.
29th, 2020, guys. And of course, because of coronavirus, I've got Kyle on Discord. Kyle, good evening, man.
What's up?
Guys, there has been a lot of news. We're not going to really cover a lot of last week per se, but we got a lot of stuff that came out this week to talk about. So we've got more PlayStation 5 news. We've got news on the Borderlands movie. Microsoft detailed what's going on with the Xbox Series X and more. So let's go ahead and just hop right into it. All right. So, our first story this week comes to us from Kotaku. Sony will finally show PlayStation 5 games on June 4th. Now, this was an interesting one that we finally got ourselves to the point now of saying, hey, when are we going to actually be seeing the PlayStation 5? This is probably going to be it. Sony will show off games for the PlayStation 5 during an official online showcase at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, June 4th. In a blog post today, Sony boss Jim Ryan promised that the showcase will include games and will run a bit more than an hour. He's quoted as saying, "That's why I'm excited to share that we will soon give you a first look at the games we'll be playing after PlayStation 5 launches this holiday. The games coming to PS5 represent the best in the industry from innovative studios that span the globe. Studios both larger and smaller, those newer and those more established, all have been working or have been hard at work developing games that will showcase the potential of the hardware." So, outside of all of the different things that we've seen so far, we have seen the logo at CES, which really didn't blow anybody away. We have seen kind of the tech that goes on inside of it, which really mirrors a lot of what Microsoft is doing with the Xbox Series X. We've seen the controller, and we've seen the Unreal Engine 5 demo in the last few weeks too. So now really what's left, I mean, Kyle, I don't really think we can argue much on this one, is that the console. I mean, that's really what's left, right?
True, but they still have one hand up, and that is they've shown actual gameplay because it was an actual gameplay trailer.
Which one was the gameplay trailer?
The Epic Games showcase.
Well, if you're talking specifically about Unreal Engine 5, that one was more of a playable
Yeah.
trailer. It was a PT without,
Yeah,
jump scares and
I mean, they were playing it. It was actual gameplay. It's probably a game we'll never see, but it was actual gameplay.
I wonder if it might end
So
up being an actual, like, maybe in-store demo that Epic might release out to say, it's like, okay, if you want to see what the PlayStation 5 is capable of, here are some demos you can play, but then here's also our Unreal Engine 5 demo that you can go and, navigate around and look at. So I could see,
that's very PlayStation generation thinking of you.
what can I say? Um, the,
Like original PlayStation.
The article doesn't really go on to talk about too much more specifically on the actual console being revealed itself, but I really think we're at the point now to actually start seeing this thing make its way out. There's no way we're coming up on June. Like literally, that means we're halfway through the year. You're talking about holiday 2020 stuff. Your marketing materials and so on are already in the process of being made and even printed. Even in the midst of the coronavirus, there should still be some sort of manufacturing going on and starting to make these consoles, at least at some certain level. But we're now at that point that we should actually be seeing the goddamn console. And I don't know if we are really here. I truly expect it to be. I guess I should really have kind of contained my excitement there at the beginning. But I expected that we should have been seeing this. Or should be seeing this on the 4th. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, there's nothing else really that talks about it actually, but we do really hope that it would be. And this kind of rolls into our next article here on the list. And I actually missed this one, Kyle, as we were kind of going back and forth on stuff for today. This one's from Eurogamer, and it says, new PlayStation 4 games must also run on PlayStation 5 from July, Sony tells devs. So, Kyle, fill us in on this one. What exactly is Sony basically forcing down everybody's throat?
Yeah, so Sony has told PlayStation 4 game developers that any new titles submitted for certification must also be compatible with PlayStation 5 beginning the 13th of July. So not too long away. Um, that means that there's going to be quite a few titles coming up. Uh, this means all PS4 games received by Sony for testing after the middle of the month are technically forward compatible, playable on Sony's next gen console through though it is up to each game's developer to ensure this is the case. Developer documentation released on PlayStation's internal partner website and seen by Eurogamer details an option developers must check to state that their game has been tested for compatibility with PS5 hardware. This option was added at the end of April in a new version of Sony's PS4 software developer kit. Sony
Wow.
has also told developers it will contact them individually with details on how to test PS5 compatibility in order uh, in order of their various projects' release. Further documentation sheds light on what compatibility means. A game will be deemed compatible with or PlayStation 5 only if the submission code runs without issues on Sony's next gen machine and provided the same features on PS5 as it does on PS4.
Okay.
So,
So basically, it's Sony is now laying down the hammer and says if you are going to make a game from this point on, you must make sure it works on the PlayStation 5.
yeah,
That's I mean, in the grand scheme of things that makes sense, but what does it mean though if say like the developer doesn't have the ability to purchase a PlayStation 5 dev kit? Like what does that mean? I mean, does that mean that Sony just won't release their game at all on either console? Like if they can only afford a PlayStation 4 dev kit and they're making the game for PlayStation 4 and they can't go and get a PlayStation 5 dev kit and they're only planning on a PlayStation 4 release, what happens? I mean, what's your take on that, Kyle? Do they just hold back on letting them publish the game at all in the first place to the PlayStation 4? Like they don't even let them do it at all. Do they change the way they hold things out? What
I
do you
could
think?
see Sony going with a do not pass go type scenario on this one. If the game doesn't work on PS5, they're just going to say, well, then you could just release it on the PS5 later.
That's very possible, and I wonder how many more PlayStation 4 dev kits are even being like shipped out or sent out anyway. I'm sure that there's probably a couple here and there, but I can't imagine exactly like how that would be good for business. That if you are an indie developer, you're only going to be able to develop so far unless you have the new hardware in your hands. And
Right.
because you have to pay I think you have to pay some sort of like licensing fee. If I really remember, you have to pay something like that to Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo to get the dev kit in your hands because all the NDAs and such too, of course. You know, so
But
it's
that's why a lot of these indie developers go to big name publishers so they can cover that.
so that
That's why
way.
you see so many of them not releasing games on their own and turning to big name publishers. That's what I feel like.
Okay, no, that's okay. That also is fair too. Yeah, a lot of your indie, like true indie developers, where they don't rely on a publisher, like an actual big name publisher, they'll be the ones who are generally hindered, and they'll be the ones who actually, you know, I guess develop where they can. I can't imagine a lot of things being terribly expensive, but for these bigger names, it's going to cost so much compared to developing like say for PC and putting it up on Steam or Epic Game Store or like well not Origin, but you know what I mean.
Right. And
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think about it this way too. I mean, for indie publishers, it's probably a lot easier to develop for a PC and then going forward from there if they wanted to, they could use a third-party publisher to help them port it to like PlayStation and Xbox to help them broaden their scope. And if not, then by then they might, have enough sales generated from, just the PC sales to be able to get a developer kit in order to port it themselves.
Yeah, that actually is a very good point too, and that
So,
if But that's the thing, is that to rely on those, I mean, you don't know, like, no offense, I mean, not every game is going to do well. So you never know if you're
Right.
going to have that revenue, and this could be your make or break game too. And we've seen success stories though, anyway, where a game seems to be a make or break. The hell, my camera just disconnected.
No.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like it just doop and then disconnected. I knew there was something going on with this. I guess no camera for tonight then. That's awesome. Fucking stupid thing. Let's see. I'm gonna hide that then for now. Well then, let me just go ahead and move on here to our, I guess what, next story then?
Yeah, I guess so. I will say that it was originally submitted that games that were submitted to Sony before the 13th of July would only be strongly recommended that they have compatibility with the PlayStation 5, but then that it was later changed that going further that you would have to. And let's see. So, and then anything that was originally submitted before that date, before it had changed, now they'll have to submit a patch that would keep the PS5 compatibility. So, I don't know, kind of interesting,
Yeah,
but
that
it'll be
that is very
interesting going
interesting.
forward also to see what's going on with the PlayStation compatibility because I mean this also does throw up some more flags that we are only going to see backwards compatibility for select PlayStation 4 titles. I think if we see PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1 titles, they're all going to be download titles. I think that's going to be leaning more towards their PlayStation Now service. And I think that's how they're playing it, that it's an entirely backwards compatible unit.
Yeah, maybe they have a way through the actual cloud side of things to allow for that development to happen without actually having a physical device in hand, like an actual physical console. So that could be part of it. It's like if the hardware is off site, you just load your game up through it and do your dev and move on from there. So
Right.
that could do it and save some costs. Well, I guess let's just see how things go for developers and see if anybody ends up having to backtrack on anything. But let's move in here to our next story on the list. And this one actually is kind of a surprise because, I mean, we kind of know how video game movies go, right, Kyle? I mean, we've seen what happens with Super Mario Bros. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, so this comes to us from Polygon. Kate
Double
Blanchett.
Dragon.
Oh, fuck, don't talk to me about Double Dragon. How about Street Fighter, where Guile, the
Oh,
American soldier, is played by a Belgian?
hey, I will say some of the new Street Fighter movies that they've released in the last like 5 years have been pretty sweet.
Agreed. They haven't been terrible. They haven't been terrible. And I got to admit, even if that old Street Fighter movie, you know, the really old, like one where Raul Julia is playing M. Bison, I got to say, it's still a fun one to check
Oh
out.
yeah.
So, not going to get past any of that. But yeah, so in the grand scheme of video game movies, from Polygon, Kate Blanchett to star in Borderlands movie. So she has been cast as Lilith, of all people. I actually don't know if I would have picked her for Lilith, but you know, I mean, I guess we'll just have to see how she does. But the likelihood that we'll see Kate Blanchett interact with wisecracking robot Claptrap on the big screen has skyrocketed as Lionsgate confirmed on Thursday that the two-time Oscar-winning actress will star in the movie adaptation of Borderlands. Blanchett will portray the Vault Hunter Lilith, the siren from Gearbox Software's original Borderlands. Borderlands will be directed by Eli Roth, from a screenplay by Craig Mazin. Blanchett and Roth previously worked together on the 2018 fantasy horror comedy The House with a Clock in Its Walls, which that was actually a pretty good movie if you haven't seen that one, Kyle. I'd go to
I have not.
check that one out. It's with Jack Black. It's one where it's all magic and that too, and the yeah, it's I watched that one with my kid. If you get a chance to go, just bringing that movie up. I think it might be on Netflix. Don't quote me on that though.
I have
But
to check it out.
yeah, it's a really good one. But yeah, I mean, Kate Blanchett's a very well-known actress. Most recently, of course, she played in Thor Ragnarok as Hela, Thor and Loki's, or Thor's true biological sister, and of course Loki's sister. And you know, we're not going to get into that. She was in Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies. As didn't she play it? Who'd she play in those ones? I'm trying to remember. Did she play I'm probably gonna butcher her name. Galadriel, that elf like
I
queen
don't know
leader.
how to pronounce. Yeah,
Was that
I
her?
don't know how to. I'm fairly certain it was. Yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't she the one that like does that like evil transformation that on
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And it was her. Yeah. Kate Blanchett played her. Yeah. Galadriel. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't have
Galadril.
told you her name.
Yeah. It's just yeah. For the things to stick in my head, that's exactly what it is. So yeah. So she is going to be playing Lilith. I don't know what to take away from that part. Actually, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I appreciate I appreciate Kate Blanchett and what she does, and I've enjoyed the movies that she's been in, but I don't know if I would have picked her as Lilith. Unfortunately, part of my mind goes to maybe I know it's funny to say, of course, because of everything that's gone on anyway, but I would see more of like Scarlett Johansson playing Lilith more than anything.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
I don't know, someone who has a little bit more of like that actiony kind of tone and walk and move to themselves too. I think that she would definitely have been one of them. But it's whatever. I'm still. We talked about this though, didn't we, Kyle? In one of the more recent podcasts, we talked about video game movies, didn't we? And
Yeah.
about a Borderlands movie itself, because we knew, of course, that there had been things going on and that there was stuff being looked into, but we weren't, of course, as far as we are now. So what I'm curious about is like, what's the movie really going to be about? What exactly is it that they're actually going to do in this movie? Is it just going to be a lot of running across the desert and opening up crates and then a little bit of claptrap banter and then back to doing the same thing?
See, and that's kind of what I'm wondering too, because even with good video game movies, you kind of have to ask, what are they trying to achieve here? Because if they're just doing the game story over again, that's kind of dumb. I mean,
Yeah,
you play
exactly.
the game to experience the story, and that's how the creators originally intended it to be. So I don't know. In that sense, I almost feel like the video game movies can be kind of an insult to the original creation. But I I don't know. Like, what are they trying to do here? Are they trying to do the story of the Vault Hunters, the original Vault Hunters? Are they trying to do the story of the I don't know, encapsulate all three games into one movie? Jesus Christ, that would be a long movie. Um,
Oh, that it would be probably in the same vein as like Lord of the Rings and that too, where and any other episodic stuff is you'd have three different movies.
seeing, I don't know. I feel like it'd almost be too cartoony at
See,
that point. Like, and maybe that's just me looking at the graphics, and I know what the original graphics were supposed to look like. They were supposed to look like how the original Rage looked. Um, but even if you think about it like that, I mean, it's still the idea of it, putting it to film. It doesn't seem like it would work. It's gonna be Mad Max, I think.
mm-hmm.
That's the only way it'll work. It'll be literally Mad Max.
And I got my camera back. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Is that it's like it the Borderlands series itself has been one of those games. It's always been a homage to Mad Max and to a lot of those apocalyptic survival type story things, and of course, giving more of the sci-fi twist to it, though. Of course, but the big selling point anyway for Borderlands wasn't just necessarily running around and doing that. Was also all the guns you can find. Like, where's the humor and the value going to be in there? That if you go and you have all these vault hunters running around, they're finding all these different guns. Are they going to Easter egg a bunch of them? Or are they going to make them do some of the same things in there? Like, the gun that would talk crap back to you when you were like, you'd go and shoot it. And even if you killed somebody, it always like diss your aim or diss your shot or something. Are they going
Right.
to do
Or
that?
like the splash screens when you go into bosses. I mean, this has
Mm-hmm.
been done kind of before with Scott Pilgrim, but even then it delved totally into the goofy side of things.
Exactly. Scott Pilgrim was also a completely different thing though too. And that movie I think really did well. Although I will say there's so many different things left out of the comic books that they didn't put into the movie. So I I don't know. I'm probably gonna see it. I'm just not like holding real high hopes right now that it's going to be a good movie. I just think it's
Yeah,
going to be one of those like, hey, we're going to throw all this money around at you and make this thing work. And
yeah. Until I
that's what
see
we
an
got.
actual trailer, to me, it's just another bizarre game idea or bizarre movie idea. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's going to be another one just to see what happens with it. I don't have anything against Borderlands. I will admit I still have not actually played, or I have played, but I've not really put much progress into Borderlands 3. So if they did a combination of all three games, I'm going to miss out on a lot of the stuff that was referenced in the third. But if it is Lilith, I wonder, because a lot of backstory, I wonder if they're going to focus a lot more on the first game, or at least a lot of the story elements of the first game, maybe into the second, like with the introduction of Handsome Jack.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But let's move here into our next story. And this is another one from Polygon. This one's actually really exciting, of course, though, too. And this kind of also throws a little bit of shade back at Sony, too. But this one is Xbox Series X backwards compatibility will add HDR, 120 frames per second support to older games. Thousands of games will be supported on the next gen Xbox, and of course, that'll really be at launch. Microsoft's next generation Xbox will launch with support for thousands of games from the original Xbox, Xbox 360, and Xbox One, the company says. On Thursday, the company pledged more than just basic support for those older games. They should play better than ever before, according to Jason Ronald, Director of Program Management for Xbox Series X. That includes support for HDR color and Xbox 360 and original Xbox titles, and even double the frame rate of a select set of titles from 30 frames to 60 or 60 to 120. Backwards compatible games will run natively on the Xbox Series X hardware, running with the full power of the CPU, GPU, and the SSD. Ronald had said in a blog post published on the Xbox Wire. No boost mode, no downclocking, the full power of the Xbox Series X for each and every backward compatible game. This means that all titles run at the peak performance that they were originally designed for, many times even higher performance than the game saw on their original launch platform, resulting in higher and more steady frame rates and rendering at their maximum resolution and visual quality. That is a pretty big freaking deal. Like, that is something that we
But it's also
can't
a
argue with.
pretty bold claim.
So I don't really like, I think that's pretty neat that it's like all of this is going to be carrying along. And I think a lot of it anyway for like the Xbox 360 and original Xbox titles, a lot of it's going to be emulation anyway, because the hardware for those consoles is very different from what Xbox One and Series X has. The Xbox One to the Series X is a little closer because they're using almost nearly the same type of processor and GPU setup that you'd see in a modern computer. But I do think that offering this level of backwards compatibility support is going to be, I think that's astounding. I think that's such a cool thing to be able to say, here, buy our console, go ahead and take it into your house, and if there wasn't a game that you wanted to play that had that's out there on the shelf for this, that's fine. Just throw your Xbox One game, or you want to go try out an Xbox 360 game and see what happens to it, by all means, just throw it in and do it.
But this also does come down to per developer if they actually want their game to run on the system too, doesn't it?
I think that was actually part of it. I think you're absolutely right. I think most of it though really was like just like it was E3 last year. I think they had said that they it wasn't, maybe it wasn't E3, maybe it was in another announcement, but I think they said that all the developers and publishers needed to do was just give the thumbs up, and then Microsoft would handle the rest.
Right.
Which means,
And
which is cool.
there's a lot of talk that um people think you could go and just flip a switch, and that used to not be true, but it kind of is now with the architecture and with the developments we've made in the tech. They can just go in and flip a switch, it'll kind of work. So
Mm-hmm. I'm actually very curious to see what it's going to look like to run an Xbox or an Xbox 360 game on the Series X. Like, can you imagine Halo 3 in HDR, 120 frames per second?
it will be really cool. What's going to be really cool, and I've wanted to try this for a while, but my original Xbox is in storage,
Yeah,
and I don't know if my 360 is in uh, functional means right now. But you can on LAN play uh, your multiplayer games. Uh, oh, excuse me. So, like, if you have Crimson Skies, say, downloaded on your Xbox One and you have an original Xbox copy via LAN, you can play multiplayer across both systems, which I think is really cool. But I want to
that is
see
neat.
what what it looks like when you play on a LAN on an Xbox Series X versus the original Xbox.
Like, are you wondering if maybe the performance bump might actually give a little bit more of like an advantage to those on the Series
Well,
X?
not only that, but also just to be able to see the side by side in the same room, you know, on my own stuff. I just think it's cool because things like this they've shown, you see videos of stuff like that all the
Mm-hmm.
time. But with Xbox, and the way they've done their backwards compatibility, I think it's really cool that if you wanted to, you could do it yourself at home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing that you could just do, you know. Uh, but I'm
But it's
wondering,
gonna be really cool to see like some of the like the HDR and what it does. Because I mean, you get a little bit of a graphical boost on those original Xbox games
mhm.
playing on the Xbox One. But I want to see what it looks like. Yeah, just the new stuff that they're adding.
What I'm really curious about though is this is and I'm thinking a lot more. I think to I'm thinking a lot more onto how these actual like new features are applied. Is that even with putting a game onto a console that you know is going to be able to support the 120 frames per second, the HDR in that. Part of me almost has that weird hunch that any games that actually do support that, besides just being able to turn the game on and actually start playing it, I'm truly curious to know if you're going to end up having to download some type of not necessarily like texture pack, but some sort of enhancement pack, like something not necessarily like grandiose in size, but maybe like say the game itself is on a disc that's only like let's talk an Xbox 360 game because most of those discs are like DVDs anyway. Let's say that the game itself is like 10 gigs in size. If you wanted to add HDR to that, does that mean you have to download an additional 2 to 3 gigs of
Yeah, I
supporting
do kind of
material to do
wonder
it?
that too because they say there's supposed to be a software rendering and they showed it in the video where Austin Evans got to go in and mess with the Series X and take it apart. They
Mm-hmm.
showed where you get the highest amount of graphical improvements and where the most graphical improvement is available on the console for those classic games.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're right. I think the software can only do so much. There's got to be some like texture pack or some sort of supplemental download to help the software out to be able to get it that little extra kick.
Yeah, because I can't take Half Life from the 90s, and put that onto my computer right now and expect my computer to do all of the work to up the graphical quality, make the thing look better. I mean, literally, I have to go get Black Mesa, of course, to get that quality improvement. It's a completely separate game.
Right. And there
But
was actually there's another team working on, bringing Half-Life 2 back to Half-Life 1 graphics, and they're not actually able to use like the necessarily the Half-Life code. They have to
Mhm.
rebuild a bunch of it because it just doesn't work.
Yeah, so it's like I think emulation is going to get you so far as to be able to play the game and do some online and some local co-op, do some LAN play. But I think you're going to be seeing a texture pack somewhere. I think we're
Yeah.
going to be talking if it's like it's going to be X% of a game install or a game that you're playing is going to be that. So maybe that's kind of circling back around to like what I said, is that the previous notion had been, developers just give the thumbs up, Microsoft takes care of it. This might require a little bit of extra wiggle room and support from the developers to actually do. And I don't know how that's going to fully go. I guess it depends on the games that they end up wanting to do that with. Now, it also kind of leads into those same areas where you're talking about like going back and buying a remaster of a game too. If they put all their effort into making sure this is here, instead of doing a full remaster, it's like, okay, this will support HDR, this will support 120 frames per second. It still looks okay. That gives them time to go and actually move on to making the next game that the developers and publishers want to make. It kind of offers a little bit of a wiggle room for them.
That's true, but I do also see people doing remasters continuously still, because there'll always be assets in a game that weren't there that the developers originally wanted there.
Mm-hmm.
There might be a fight in the game that they couldn't put in, and they couldn't necessarily throw in a download because they would have had to put in a whole nother chunk of code specific just for a boss fight for that section of the game. Stuff like that, like that's the reason we'll always see remasters and remakes, in my opinion.
Right, I'm just genuinely...
I think we'll see less remasters and more so on the remake side.
That's actually fair. That's 100% agreeable on that one. I can't fight you on that one. I think that one makes more sense. So yeah, more on the remasters, less on the actual remake part itself. So okay, no, that's understood. But let's jump in, because we've already been talking video game movies tonight too. Let's jump into another one. Always fun. This one's from The Verge. A sequel to the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is in development. A sequel to the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is in development, as first reported by Variety. It's unclear when the film might be released, but Sonic the Hedgehog director Jeff Fowler and screenwriters Pat Casey and Josh Miller are all returning for the sequel. Fowler confirmed that he'd be back to direct on Twitter. Sonic the Hedgehog was a hit for Paramount, earning $70 million in its first 4 days in theaters this February, according to Variety. However, the film initially had some controversy because of the design of its titular character. Yeah. So, even getting past all of that with the, the way Sonic originally looked in that too. Have you seen this movie?
I have not. I still really want to, however. I'm going to end up buying it on Vudu, I imagine.
If you have a chance, like, to actually get it, like, even if you can rent it from somewhere, like if you did, like, say, a Google Play Movies rental of it, it's actually not bad. It definitely is a kid movie. A lot of, the canned humor, the some of the jokiness in there, but it offers a little bit of a fresh twist to Sonic. Like it doesn't follow like the same thing. Like you're not in the Green Hill Zone or anything, and your job, like, it's not Sonic's job to go and collect rings. They did something different on that part, but not going to spoil it for you because I really want you to see it. It's definitely a kid movie, but I think with the change that they made to Sonic's model, it ended up actually being a really good movie.
Right.
And Jim Carrey does a very good Robotnik. I think that the way they modernized Robotnik for this compared to his whole Eggman shtick from all the games and animated.
Did they actually call him Robotnik though?
Yes. I will tell you that is his name in this movie. Yep.
That would have been a total buzzkill for me if they wouldn't have called him Robotnik, because when they started calling him Eggman, I was a little teed off. So he is named Robotnik in the movie. I'm not going to say anything else. There are a couple Easter egg things that go into the movie anyway, though, too, that if you've played a Sonic game, you'll pick out pretty quick. So, again, on the grand scheme of video game movies, this is definitely a decent one. And I'm actually glad that with the character model change, it was definitely bearable to sit through. So, watch it. No news of, like, when we should be expecting it, or
like
when...
Not yet. I'm guessing we're probably talking about another maybe 3 years out.
Yeah, just that it got picked up, I guess, at this point, right?
Exactly. And of course, with everything still shut down because of coronavirus, there's probably not going to be as much development on a movie at this time, because you're talking at least, some mocap stuff. You're talking that you need actor and model interactions. You need to set up all the scenes. You actually still need to do real footage versus CGI. It's not going to
Right. No, I was
happen
just
right now.
thinking, if they had like, oh, we're gonna try and shoot for putting this movie out, in 2023, 2024,
Yeah, no, nothing on that yet. Sounds like they're just getting ready to sit down and talk about it. So
That's cool though.
yeah,
That makes me happy.
same here.
And it makes me extremely happy too because, this is a movie that there was so much outrage when the initial trailer launched because that Sonic was creepy.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty bad one. Jason Schwartz was definitely a good choice for playing a Sonic. He's got the same the way his voice actually works for Sonic is, I would say, almost on par with the Sonic that we know from the animated series, like the original animated series. So it definitely fits very well, and I hope I've got to imagine that he's coming back.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. But hey, let's move into this next one here. And Kyle, you like spending money, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, tell you what, I got something you can spend $599 on. From Engadget, HP's Reverb G2 VR headset delivers Valve Index features at $599.
Whoa, hold up. $599.
$599. Break out the checkbook. Get the Bitcoin out. At the moment, the Valve Index is one of the best VR headsets you can buy. The problem is that it's also one of the most expensive, which makes HP's latest headset, the Reverb G2, intriguing. Designed with help from Valve and Microsoft, the G2 is a $599 device that may just hit the sweet spot for those looking to get into VR now that compelling games like Half-Life Alyx are available to play. And this is the really cool stuff here, though. The G2 retains the sharp 2160 by 2160 per eye resolution of HP's previous headset, but complements the LCDs with lenses designed by Valve. HP also added a new IPD toggle that allows you to adjust the distance between the lenses to accommodate the gap between your pupils better. Valve likewise helped design the G2's near-field speakers, so much so that they almost look like they were taken directly from the Index. When you put on the G2, the speakers will sit about 10 millimeters away from your ears and deliver full immersive spatial audio. Out of the box, the speakers support Microsoft's spatial audio platform and a new spatial audio format developed by HP Labs. So, quite literally, it's a Valve Index at $600.
Does it have the hand control, though, that the Index offers?
Let's take a look here. I think it did when I was looking at this in another article. Let's see. Where is it? It was talking about the controllers, too. Yeah, it doesn't actually say anything about the controllers in here. Crap, let me see what I can find here. Because I saw pictures of the actual controllers. Like they actually looked like they were almost the same. They were almost like a cross between the Valve Index controllers and the Oculus controllers. So let me see if I can find a picture here of the actual control units. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. All right, so here's an article from Forbes that actually shows a little bit more. Kyle, I'll drop this to you in chat. All right, and we'll switch back to this. There we go. All right, so yeah, so the headset has cameras built into it. So the platform itself is built on is that it's not actually a Oculus Rift. It's not a Steam VR headset at all. It will work with those, but it's a Windows Windows mixed reality. There, it was in the article and helped me with that. So in here, yeah, the actual controllers itself talks a little bit more about them here too. In this article from Forbes, it says for the Reverb G2, HP has worked with Microsoft to overhaul the Reverb controllers. HP has overhauled the Reverb G2 controllers and made them more ergonomic and comfortable and did away with the touchpads, instead going for a thumbstick and button scheme, which seems to take point towards a more Oculus Touch-like appearance. One of the big problems with a lot of inside-out headsets is that the controllers lose tracking when they move outside the field of view of the cameras built into the headset. That's why HP has included 4 outward-facing cameras for the headset's tracking, as well as the tracking of controllers, enabling a more robust tracking experience for both the headset and controllers. The original Reverb only had 2 front-facing cameras, which significantly limited the field of view where the controllers could be tracked reliably. This should considerably improve the user experience of the Reverb G2 and make it a much more enjoyable experience. So they basically doubled the tracking volume of the controllers, and it allows for 6 degrees of freedom of controller tracking. So that means that you don't need the actual the Oculus style base stations or the Valve lighthouses that they use to track where the headset and the controllers are within a given space.
Right.
Yeah, they do. Like literally, like they look exactly like an Oculus Quest's controllers.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's going to offer, because the Valve Index will actually it does actually offer full finger recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean it. The reason I bring it up, and it's kind of funny, is specifically in a Donkey video, he's playing Half-Life Alyx, and he's flipping all the Combine off, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of ironic. I mean, it gets old after a while, but it's funny, and occasionally,
Yeah.
you'd like to probably do it yourself.
Right, and there's a video I saw actually just today that someone was in Half-Life Alyx, like right at that starting point where you're starting to kind of figure out the controls. They actually grabbed a beer bottle and were shaking it back and forth. And if I saw that video right, you could actually see inside as they were shaking it that the foam of the beer was increasing as they were shaking it.
See, and
there's a lot
that's
more
really
of the
cool.
spatial level of things. Yeah, exactly. And I think that the article
And
goes on to say here that it's like, they actually worked with Valve to do the eyepiece part, but at the same time, and the headphones, but at the same time, it's like, it makes sense, I guess, for Valve to step up and say, it's like, we're going to sell our own. We have the platform here, but we're not against helping other people out.
Right, and it did actually say that in the Forbes article that you sent me after. Was it the Forbes article that was second?
I just sent you that one. Yeah.
Yeah. In the Forbes article, it did say that Valve wants to enhance the VR experience across the board, so they're not against helping other companies out with this. So I think that's really cool. But at the same time, I would like to see more people do what the Index is capable of. To me, this is a midway point between like the Oculus. I don't know. It's almost kind of like the Quest to me. Like it's not quite the full experience, but it's not quite the lesser experience. You're
Mm-hmm.
gonna get more than you get with the Vive and with the Oculus Rift, but you're not gonna get as much with the as you would with the Valve Index.
Yeah, and that's going to be kind of one of those those opportunity costs for you on that one is, do you want to save up more money and go with the Index, or would you much rather take a step back here, save yourself some money, and go with the Reverb, which
But this is also going to be a thing with the PC elitists that, oh, well, you have the
no
HP,
shit.
well, I've got the Valve Index.
Well, it's like just like with between console and PC, there's always infighting in the PC stuff anyway too. AMD, Intel, Nvidia, ATI.
Right, and you're
So,
always going to have your fanboys for branding. So
100% you will. So
I know, because I'm one of the Valve fanboys. So
no way, really.
you couldn't tell.
Color me shocked. Yeah. No, we already know this one. We do. Just like it is with me and Halo and Call of Duty. So, but if there was one I was going to get, it's either between the Quest or I think this. I think this would be a good contender to spend a little bit more money than the Quest, lose the portability part of it, but still have the the enhancements that you would get similar to an Index without paying Index prices.
Right.
Yeah, so this would
And
be
I think that's good. That's cool.
there needs to be. I mean, in the whole VR space, there needs to be a middle ground on cost. Otherwise, you're just going to alienate people out of wanting to join in, and then this is where we're at. You're not going to be able to sell enough.
This is also Valve saying, "Hey, we made a full game. We made a real big full game, and we want other people to participate in this. So you guys need to catch up. So
Yes.
here you go."
Exactly. It's like this is how we're going to help to build up the help build up the environment. Is that it doesn't hurt us any if you build it because we've got the software and back end to handle more of it. So yeah,
And then we can all become surrogates, or it'll be like the plot of Lawnmower Man.
or we got the Matrix, or better yet, Nerve Gear out of Sword Art Online. If you've ever watched that one.
I like the evolution of that from Excel World, where they just have it on their neck and it's on all the time from birth.
You know what? Screw it. Just put me inside of Ava 1. Just go full on umbilical here. Just drown me in liquid oxygen and we'll be perfectly fine. We'll just go that way. Okay?
Oh, you just want to 100% sink and turn into LCL. Cool.
That right there is the correct answer, which leads us into, of course, realities that can never, truly come to fruition here. Our dreams being shattered and such. This one from VG247. This was from Wednesday. BlizzCon 2020 canceled, but an online event is in the works for early next year. Wah wah. This year's BlizzCon will unsurprisingly not take place. Blizzard, which said last month that it was too early to tell whether BlizzCon 2020 will be held, has now officially canceled this year's show. During this time, we have had many discussions about what holding a convention could look like in the light of all the health and safety considerations we'd want to make. We've also talked about different paths we could take and how each one could be complicated by fluctuations in national and local health guidelines in the months ahead. Ultimately, after considering our options, we've come to the very difficult decision to not have BlizzCon this year, and that was per BlizzCon executive producer Sarah Lynn Smith. So, BlizzCon, just like we talked about Tokyo Game Show, we've talked about Gamescom, we've talked about E3, they have all, and GDC. Coronavirus has killed all of it. A lot of stuff is going to have to go digital, and it's going to happen. I mean, it's not, it's not really
I could see
far-fetched.
Blizzard making a thing of this. This is Blizzard we're talking about, and they've got, World of Warcraft, they have Overwatch, they have Diablo. I could see them doing events in-game in conjunction with announcements, trying to hype up people because they don't have BlizzCon.
Dude, could you imagine getting into a lobby in Overwatch and it's like this is where they're going to do the announcement? Like say they like change out the stadium for like Lucio Ball from Anniversary, and there's just a whole bunch of just characters in there. You're just all sitting around and you're just watching something on screen, like the way it goes in Fortnite when they have their concerts and reveals.
Right.
That would be cool. I would gladly pay for a digital BlizzCon ticket to go do that. I think that would be a neat experience, in my opinion.
Don't give him any ideas now.
Oh, they're going to do it. That's exactly how they would do it. For a fact.
Probably.
They've been doing the digital ticket now for 3 years now. So yeah, I wholeheartedly believe they're going to. So yeah, coronavirus is just kicking everybody's ass still. It's kind of the new norm. We've been at this now 3 months, at least lockdown wise and shutdown wise stuff. So yeah.
Fingers crossed they do like I said they would. And just throw some in-game events, keep the fanatics happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you've got to. And of course, I'm just kind of curious to see exactly how they're going to handle everything, especially because remember last year's BlizzCon was so marred by all of the Hong Kong stuff. It's like, how is this year's BlizzCon going to help? Of course, now of course it's canceled, but it's like, what's the digital one going to be like instead too? So that's going to be fun to see. Yeah. I mean, I've never been to a BlizzCon before anyway. I'd really love to go still, but we'll just have to wait.
It'd be really cool. It would be cool.
We just have to wait for everything else to clear up. The NPCs will all go together to a convention one day. We'll all go to a game.
Maybe we'd get invited.
Pipe dream, sir. Pipe dream. Yeah. But I'm right there with you.
We can guest speak.
Nobody wants us to talk on stage. Nobody wants us to. Let's move on here.
You mean no one wants to hear Preston talk all over all of us on stage?
No, I don't even want to hear that. Man, no, I'm good. Let's move on to our next story here. And of course, this one's a big one for the NPCs because this is actually a game that we've talked about rather constantly and has a nice new update coming up. Dead by Daylight Silent Hill is coming in June. You are going back to Midwich Elementary. Silent Hill is returning in video game form, though not in its own video game. Pyramid Head and Cheryl Mason, also known as Heather, some of the other games, are coming to Dead by Daylight as playable characters. The next chapter in the multiplayer horror game will hit PC and consoles on June 16th and will let players struggle to survive and kill everybody in a new map based on Silent Hill's Midwich Elementary School. Mason, the protagonist of Silent Hill 3, appears as a new survivor, while Pyramid Head steps in his natural role as a sadistic killer. If you don't want to wait until June to play, you can try Dead by Daylight Silent Hill out now in the public test build on Steam. So the actual name of Pyramid Head, since the licensed characters don't actually go off of, or they don't have their names or anything anyway tied to them, it's like usually it's the Executioner is the name they gave him. So,
but the Konami name is tied to it, correct?
What, that they're bringing Silent Hill into this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Konami, of course, had to sign off on them doing this anyway, just like the movie companies had to sign off on Freddy Krueger and all them coming in too. So yes, this is part of it.
We're not getting spooky pachinko anymore.
No.
At least temporarily, we're not getting spooky pachinko.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I'm curious about to see though is exactly how Pyramid Head really moves in the game though too. Like, does he, is he kind of more like Oni, where he's a little bit slower than everybody else, or is he more of a like right in your face, like, you know, like he might move a little slower, but he can charge at you and take your ass down, you know? Like what do you like? What would you think on that one?
Leatherface or something?
Yeah, I would think so. I'm gonna bring this video up here on this one. I'm gonna mute this though, and like someone actually is playing in the test here, so I'm gonna bring this up and show this to the audience here as we're talking about this a bit more. That's what I'm just wondering here. So I'm gonna watch the video here, just see. Kyle, if you want to bring it up, let me drop the. Oh, there he is. Drop the link here to you for the one I'm looking at. Well, he definitely is not slow. Come on, let's get past this. I actually want to see how he moves. I was kind of hoping maybe he'd be a little bit slower, because he really wasn't too fast in the games when you did encounter him in Silent Hill. He was more of a slow and steady, but he was strong as hell.
You know, I can honestly say, and people are gonna rag on me for this, but I've never played a Silent Hill game.
I played what was the one on PSP? Was that Revelations?
I have no idea.
Okay. I played that, and I played a little bit of, I think, 2. But yeah, I can't immediately say I did. I understand I like the lore. I think that it's a really cool setup and such, but yeah, it's one I've never really actually played.
The idea of the lore is really cool. I never personally played him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like he is charging around like a maniac.
Yeah,
I wouldn't expect him to move around like that.
No, he moves really quick here. But again, this is the test build video, so it definitely makes sense that, you know, he probably has some more tweaking to do.
That's countered by slower attacks or, you know, slower recovery time. Who knows?
The one thing I noticed, though, is that it looks like he drags his sword across the ground, or I guess his giant knife, and it looks like it creates some type of barrier there that as they cross it, maybe it alerts him to saying, hey, they're nearby. Like, you know, like say if you do have a survivor that's put up on a hook, you'd want to do that as a killer around them to keep them away, or make them kind of like work to get their way over there to try to save whoever's up on the hook.
Yeah, kind of like alert you to their position. Like I'm trying to think of which killer it is that screams, and when they scream, all the players that are nearby can, like, they freeze and stuff. Maybe that it affects them like that or something.
Well, so, like it's like Banshee, I think might be the name.
Alert.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's see. Oh, hey, cool. So Alex here commented, said, fun fact about Midwich Elementary, it was inspired by the school in Kindergarten Cop. What?
Really? That is pretty cool.
Alex, that's pretty neat, man. That's actually a really neat fact there. That's something I never would have thought of, that this was based on Kindergarten Cop. Or at least, you know, in the original one. But I guess, you know, it's like, hey, if the developers
that's a real funny comparison image too.
Yeah, I just want to see. I'm trying to scrub through the video here a little bit more, because I want to kind of see a little bit more about Pyramid Head and see how he actually moves around. Because it looks like that is it, though, about that he does drag it. Like, let's see. There was a bit right there. I'm going to go back to see what's going on. Okay, so, they're opening up the gate. I'm at about 11:58, 12 minutes. Okay, yeah, so as you walk through, it looks like it's some sort of notification of some type. It looks like it's some sort of like steel
And
blood
actually, if you
pool mix.
scrub through till like after 13 minutes, it's all from the killer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll go to there here in a second.
So kind of a cool video to check that out. Maybe throw up the links in the chats for everyone.
Yeah, so in case anybody wants to actually take a look at this here, we'll drop this in chat here and chat on YouTube itself, though, too, just in case. There it goes. Okay, so Alex,
give yourself a quick look at the videos.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Alex, thanks for the fun fact on that one too. That's actually really neat to see. So we'll have to go. I'm gonna have to actually look that up here later. I'm very curious about that. I'm not gonna argue with that. I'll look up the information there and see what's up. Because that's I always love those little things where it's like it's based on this. It's like why? And it's like maybe one of the developers just really like Kindergarten Cop. So, all right, well, let's move on here to our second to last story for this evening. We actually had kind of a short list here. This one's from Nintendo Life. Switch Joy-Con drift claim must be arbitrated, says Illinois federal court. A win for Nintendo, but it's not out of the woods yet. If you're one of the many people who has suffered from Joy-Con drift in the past, then you might be interested to know that a legal claim by a Switch owner that Nintendo of America has sold defective controllers with its consoles must go to arbitration. The decision was made on Thursday by the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Illinois, presiding over the case of Zachary Vergara, who asserts, I think is what it is, who asserts that the Joy-Con controllers have a fault which causes the joystick to activate or drift on its own without the user actually manipulating the joystick, which is an issue that significantly interferes with gameplay. Vergara's lawsuit includes claims for violations of consumer protection laws, breach of warranty, and unjust enrichment, and he is seeking unspecified damages as well as his attorney and legal costs. So,
this is insane.
Yeah.
The courts have let it go this far. Usually Nintendo's pretty good about, quelling these things really quick.
Yeah, well, I think with how popular the Switch has been, because it has bypassed so many different of like Nintendo's console sales anyway. It's the fact here though that like that's a lot. I mean, you're talking about like if this has to go to arbitration, the one thing that it doesn't say here is that if it needs to be individual arbitration per person, or if it's going to be more of like a group arbitration. I don't understand how that actually like works itself, other than the fact that it's not in court.
I could see this turning into a mess like it did with Sony, where they got caught up that people were receiving checks for like Sony hacking or being hacked like 10 years after.
That's right.
And stuff like that. I mean, when you go to arbitration, it gets a little crazy.
It does, because...
And does this open the door for more people to go after other companies or Nintendo? Like, the fact that this one guy is able to get it this far?
Well, the thing is that it's been going on since last August, and it's the fact that it's taken this long to now come up and say, okay, you need to... Like, this is exactly how it's going to work. Like, here's what the judge said. He says, Vergara correctly observes that a party cannot be required to arbitrate a dispute that he has not agreed to submit to arbitration. That principle, however, does not mandate that the court, rather than the arbitrator, decides whether his claim must be arbitrated. By entering into an arbitration agreement that incorporates the AAA rules, the parties delegated to the arbitrator the question whether Vergara's claims must be arbitrated. God, so many times saying arbitration and arbitrated. So
yeah,
basically
the lingo gets a little confusing.
Yeah, basically it means that, like, as a TLDR, it says that Nintendo has won this round, but added that Vergara was free to come back to court if the designated arbitrator decides that the claims aren't subject to the arbitration process. So, which means that it's another legal loophole that that Vergara has to go through here, that anybody who's a part of this claim has to go through to get their case, like, to actually be a part of the case. So we need to see... what's going to
I think
happen.
someone needs to check if this guy works for Game Vice.
What do you mean?
Because Game Vice is the company that's trying to take Nintendo to court over the fact that the Switch is, or that Nintendo stole their patent for Game Vice, which is basically a controller that you can put on a tablet or on a phone, but it's more of like a grip that goes on your tablet or phone. And this is
Yeah.
something that's been going on for years as well.
Well, so I'm not seeing it. So I went and looked his name up there, and the only things that come up are all the news articles about this, about the initial suit and then the more recent arbitration, the arbitration decree kind of from the judge. So that means then that, like, for anybody that's suffering from Joy-Con drift, which honestly right now, I think my Switch Lite might actually be kind of going that way. I've noticed more so like with Animal Crossing as of late, first and foremost, that as I move my left joystick to the right, and actually am I pushing it to the right, that I will have instances of slowdown. And then as soon as I move my Joy-Con or my joystick back to the center, that it will, sometimes my Animal Crossing character will actually start to move on his own.
But I will say though, Nintendo has gone out of the way and said that they will fix it free of cost. So they have gone and recognized that maybe there is an issue and that they're bad. You know, as in it's their bad, not on us. But really and truly, it kind of is on us because I guess 50% of the drift issue, from what I understand, can also be dust particulates that get underneath the analog stick. That, in all honesty, you might try. Oh wait, there's no vibration function on the light because on
No.
the regular Switch Joy Cons, one of the things people have been doing to that works part of the time is they turn on the Find My Joy-Con function, and it will knock out the dust and stuff that's inside the analog nub.
Interesting.
But I did send you that article, or an article about the patent infringement accusations from Game Vice to Nintendo.
Yeah, and I saw that, and that's one actually I've looked at before though too. So, well, that's actually a really. I mean, we got the one thing here going on right now with the arbitration part, and then of course we go back and look at that too. I mean, it's possible it could be a behind the scenes thing though, but I think a lot of people have actually experienced enough of the Joy-Con drift that, like, I don't think that this is just some weird like shadow thing to go after Nintendo.
That's very true.
And you
but
are
for
right.
one guy to just go, well, I'm gonna sue Nintendo over it.
Well, the thing is that that's usually how it starts, and then it works towards a it usually works towards that next step. It usually works towards like, okay, this person was successful, and then based on what the judge says and what the plaintiff says, then it could change to a class action. It always depends on that
Right.
level of what happens in court and exactly how they determine such.
See,
So,
and I'm just surprised, and the reason that it makes me raise those questions too is the fact that he's still pursuing the lawsuit, even though that Nintendo's gone out of their way and said that they would,
mhm.
you know, fix or replace Joy Cons. Now I understand that he may have sold or thrown away Joy Cons, but that's kind of on him.
Say that one more time. I'm just trying to make sure I heard all that right.
Like, so for him to pursue the lawsuit,
Mhm.
or to just continue on, it raises a lot of questions for me because of the fact that Nintendo has gone out of the way and said they would fix or replace Joy Cons, and I understand that he may have thrown some out, but had Joy Cons and either sold, traded, or just flat out thrown them out. But that would be on him at that point because he didn't necessarily know that they couldn't be repaired. He could have tried.
Right, but I'm just wondering still on it way the on that though too is that, if we go back and look at the timeline of the Joy-Con drift and look at where the lawsuit started and when Nintendo started up, the new warranty process for Joy-Con repair, could it also be like I'd have to, like, there's probably some sort of legal jargon behind it though too, but I wonder if that would almost be considered some type of admission of guilt that shows it's like before this happened, this didn't exist. It was an all or nothing type repair situation, and now this is done. Oh, out of nowhere, here's this new legal documentation, legal jargon that says this is how this is going to work now to do specifically Joy-Cons. That's kind of one of those things I'm wondering is, could that also be used against Nintendo though too?
Right.
Yeah. So regardless if the guy threw them out or bought them used or whatever, there is like really it should focus more on like a lot of the new stuff because used anyway though too, like with where you work and of course with like how GameStop gets things in though too, is it's like no offense to anybody here at all, but generally when stuff comes in, it may not have been treated the best when it came in anyway, and usually when it's put back into packaging or sent off somewhere to be tested really quick, to be brought back and then put into packaging, you don't know what happens there in between. So you could always introduce something else that is not Joy-Con drift. So I think a lot of this is going to lean more towards the actual newness of each, like of the Joy-Cons themselves versus, it's like, oh, I just got a Joy-Con that's not working. So right. I think it's going to relate to that. Like, did you buy it new? Did you buy it used? That's going to be that.
See, and that also, yeah, it comes down to, having the proof too.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's going to be the big thing, too, because I don't save all my receipts. I mean, I save receipts for for actual video games, and I slide them in the boxes, and I, like, in my cases, and I've done that for years. But, yeah, for actual, like, physical hardware, like, if I buy another controller, Joy-Cons are the same way, too. I don't save the boxes or receipts.
Yeah, that's the same. It literally, the controllers are usually on my grocery receipt, so it finds its way into the trash with the bags that I bring my groceries home in,
Exactly. So let's see how this goes, and then who knows, Kyle, maybe we'll be part of a class action lawsuit here soon to get, either some free Joy-Cons or some free Nintendo money. Who knows?
Yeah, Nintendo can just send me free stuff. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'll take a second copy of Animal Crossing.
Yeah.
Or even another Switch. My kids
I think
fighting.
I think Dan could do with like 3 more copies.
That guy I don't get. Like Fire Emblem is one thing, for sure. Especially like an Animal Crossing too. Man, for putting in that many hours into a game. But I guess I shouldn't say much. Like if I'm gonna do this right now just to go humor it. Like let me open up my Steam library and see how many hours I have. Like in PUBG, I have 214 hours. In Counter-Strike, I have 189. It definitely has built up even more and more, of course, over the years for the amount of hours I've played in these games, though, too. But it's like, okay, I can't really argue too much on that front. Just different games. So,
right.
Yeah. I'm sure you're probably the same way with some of them, too. Anyway,
oh yeah.
Let's do this. Let's go ahead, Kyle. You're going to kind of roll us out of here with this last story, and this one is a bit of a surprise, and I think it's a great way to end this week's news roundup. Kyle, tell us about this story from metro.co.uk about Sega.
Yeah, so fans think Sega is making a new console for its 60th anniversary. Hints of a major announcement from Sega next week have got some people convinced that Dreamcast 2 is real. For a few years after Sega went third party, every E3 was filled with rumors about the Dreamcast 2 and Sega's dramatic re-entry into the hardware business. After a while, though, people realized that this was never going to happen and that Sega had fundamentally changed as a company from the days when it was made the Master System and Mega Drive. But the company's 60th anniversary is coming up, and it's clear it's planning to make a big deal of it, with one Japanese journalist claiming he has a huge scoop that will rile up the game industry. During a YouTube live stream, tech journalist Zenji Nishikawa said the news was on the same scale as the initial PlayStation 5 announcement in Wired. That doesn't mean that it's a hardware announcement, though. Just whatever it is will have the same impact on the industry as a whole, which makes it sound like a hardware announcement. Whatever the reveal is, it will apparently take place it will take place in the same issue of weekly Famitsu magazine due out on the 4th of June. Between this, the rumored PlayStation 5 reveal and Call of Duty Season 4 next week is going to be very busy. Last year, Wired got an exclusive with PlayStation 5, right? Other media didn't. It's that level of scoop, said Nishikawa, as translated by website Gematsu. Um, I interviewed a certain company's executive and technical staff. It's really revolutionary. Really, it's a revolution. At first, he didn't mention Sega's name, but then later seemed to do so by accident. Once he thought he made it plain that his big secret is, it isn't the Dreamcast 2. What it is, though, is hard to guess. Some kind of new mini console would hardly constitute a revolution, nor would the revival of a classic Sega franchise, which would seem to be the most obvious guess. Some kind of merger or collaboration with another company might fit the bill, but Sega and Atlas is already owned by pachinko maker Sammy, so it's hard to imagine that'd work. Whatever is going on, it won't be long till we find out. But either this is going to be a massive surprise or a massive disappointment. So a lot of speculation here. And of course, on the article, I had spoken to you about the video that they have on here with I've heard it's supposed to be the grandson or the great nephew or something of the guy from the original Sega Saturn commercial that did the same exact pose with the white coat flowing in the air. So I personally think this is maybe a Dreamcast Mini. That would be my best hope.
I think the thing is, though, is that for someone to hype it up as being something as like, revolutionary, specifically saying, this is the big thing. It's like, oh my God, and Sega's trying to almost like position themselves, like saying like they're almost like coming back with a comeback of some type too. But the question is, though, does it make sense? Like, does Sega have enough money in the bank to make another console, to risk another
and are
console?
they capable of standing toe to toe with Microsoft and Nintendo and Sony? Because now that Microsoft's in the game, Microsoft was a big supporter of the Dreamcast.
It was.
They won't have that backbone.
Yeah, look at the original Dreamcast controller versus the original Xbox controller.
Well, even on the Dreamcast boot up screen and on the front of the system, it says it's powered by Windows CE.
Oh yeah. I didn't own a Dreamcast, but that's one thing that stuck with me. I forgot. Wow.
So
I wonder though, seriously, is what could Sega do? Like, is it possible that what if it's not even? I'm going to throw this out there as a possibility. I don't think it's going to be a home console. Like, I don't think it's.
I heard a rumor, and this is once again me digging and trying to find all the rumors. That maybe we could see a Sega channel. I mean, we've got the Xbox Cloud, and we've got the PlayStation Now. We've got Stadia. Maybe we could see a revival of Sega Channel and see some of those Sega Channel exclusives.
So let me spin that back a little bit more here to say this. Okay, so I don't think we're going to see a home console from them in the general sense, like the way the Dreamcast was. I actually have a weird feeling that maybe we'll see a Nintendo Switch equivalent of a Sega Game Gear come back. That seems more like.
I think that would be really cool.
I think that's up more the alley of Sega than it is actually doing a regular home console. And the reason being for that too is that it's like I don't see it like actually having a cartridge slot where you can throw in your old Game Gear games and play it. I don't see that. What I do see instead, though, is that Nintendo not only has been able to deliver quality games and get quite a few games to its console anyway, though, too, that are AAA titles. Granted, they don't run as well, but they've been able to get those titles, and the developers and publishers support them. The third parties do.
Right.
But they don't push their console any higher than 1080p. Okay? Even when you're playing on docked, you're playing at 720p, 30 frames per second. When you're docked, you're playing 1080p, maybe 3060. It depends on who you are. It depends on what you're playing. But what you're talking about, though, now is that really has kind of set a standard that says people will love playing on this console, and it doesn't have to be the best thing in the world. It doesn't have to be, the best graphics and the best audio. It just has to play the games, and it has to play it well.
So you think maybe Sega, if they do enter the console game again, they won't be entering as a competitor against necessarily PlayStation and Microsoft, but maybe as a direct competitor to Nintendo? Maybe that Sega can do what Nintendo don't?
That's what I'm almost wondering, but part of it though too is kind of like what you were leading back on anyway is a lot of the support they had like from Microsoft, and nowadays like look at all of the Sega games that have branched off to being on a Nintendo console and Sony and Microsoft consoles, and how far it's actually like spaced out and stretched out. It's going to be weird to say, it's like, is this now going to be the only home for new Sonic games? Is this going to be the only home for any of that? Like anything Sega specific is this the only place we're going to see any more of it now? And then are they going to open up their doors to allow third party games to come in on there? Like, like with the Switch, are we going to see a Doom Eternal? Are we going to see Witcher 3? Are we going to see all of those different types of games on whatever it is Sega's doing?
Right.
My idea, of course, I think a lot of people are leaning the same way, and you've even mentioned it too, is a Dreamcast, as like, a Dreamcast mini, a Dreamcast mini release to counter the PlayStation 1 and what Nintendo's put out so far. I think that's probably more likely, or they've collaborated and are making one of those bundle console things where, you can drop a Sega, like, a Genesis cartridge in a Mega Drive CD, whatever, a Dreamcast CD, and it's gonna be an all-encompassing single box that will play a lot of these classic games too. So there's that. But what I think that's more likely what it's going to be. But in my mind, if they're talking about revolutionary, if they're talking about the potential for these things, I almost wonder if they'd go the route of Nintendo and make some sort of portable console that had some sort of the design specs that we'd see similar to a Game Gear, but it was more designed for the 21st century. It was designed literally like the Switch was back in 2016, 2017.
Right.
Yeah. I think that would be a worthy, I think that would actually be a worthy thing. I think that'd be a worthy thing to see from Sega, but I think it's the financials. I don't think Sega's got the money. I think that...
See, and I think because of that, because of the way they phrased it and stuff, and because the way you talk about it, cloud gaming wouldn't be that far off.
Mm-mm.
Because that is a next jump, not necessarily a jump forward, maybe a side step, I would say, that could run as parallel to regular, home console gaming, but cloud gaming is here, and Sega Channel was a thing in the 90s, and
That's
who
true.
knows? I mean, they could bring it back as just, you buy this console, and you just, as long as you have a Wi-Fi signal, you can play whatever games that Sega has up.
Then maybe it'll be...
maybe it's a classic collection. Maybe, maybe they aren't necessarily new games, but maybe it's a culmination of all the Sega consoles, the CD, the Saturn, the Dreamcast, the Genesis, the original Mega Drive,
What about instead though, it's like if we want to talk about cloud stuff, what about the possibility of like a Sega made like jump box? And what I mean by that is that it's actually it's a console. Okay, so think about like the Steam Link, the physical Steam Link that Valve came out with to be used as a bridge for you to be able to play games in Steam's big picture mode from your computer on your TV without actually having to hook your computer to your TV. What if they release something like that instead? And it's like, okay, we're going to package it with, a kind of like end all be all controller that looks like a Genesis controller. Here's a Dreamcast controller, and it's all USB. So even if you plug it in, you still run all your Sega games through that, and it ends up being, a unified like cloud portal device, and that's it.
Well, in a sense, that's the same thing that Google has going on with their
with Stadia.
Well, with Stadia, because you have to have the Chromecast Ultra which is basically just a smaller version of the Steam Link.
So, yes, that's true. That's very true. I'm just wondering if that might be it, though, and that might be the way that Sega kind of like comes back to it instead, is that it's like, okay, well, here's a console. You can't put games in it, per se, the same way that you would with anything else, but you can do this. You know, that might end up being the thing, but I'll still hold out for a Game Gear, you know. I'll hold out for a Game Gear too.
That would be pretty cool, but then I think they would be stepping into some shaky territory as far as that goes because of the situations that Nintendo's going through right now. Not just with the Joy-Con drift, but with the thing with Game Vice that I had mentioned earlier. I mean, at this point, anyone can say, "Oh, well, you're copying me," and it can go to court. It seems like.
Yeah, we know we're not out of the realm. Like, we're not out of the woods on, everything in the world has been invented now. We're not at any stage like that whatsoever, and won't be. But yeah, there's always going to be that litigation that's opened up because there's going to be that one little thing that's like, hey, I made something like that. I'm going to sue your ass for it. So yeah. But that's that, and it'd be really neat to see what Sega comes out with. But Kyle, I think that's everything we got for the news tonight. Do you have anything else on your side that you wanted to bring up? I think we covered everything pretty good this week.
Yeah, I can't really think of anything else. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, I want to say Phantasy Star was supposed to launch at the beginning of June. However, it's already available to download on PC. So if you want to check out Phantasy Star 2 on PC, it's available through the Microsoft Store for free to play.
Cool. And then don't forget Minecraft Dungeons launched this week too.
Very true. And I don't know if you've gotten a chance to play it. I played it a little bit. It looks like I think Dan played it a little bit too. I think he probably played it more than I did, but it's not bad. I mean, it's a lesser version of Diablo, but it's still fun, and it's one that you could play with your kids.
Exactly, and that's one I'm definitely going to be picking up here soon. So,
you don't even need to pick it up. You could download it on Game Pass.
If it's included with Game Pass, I will download it tonight. That's the plan.
It totally is. That's how I actually played it. So, check it out.
Cool. Well, with all of that said, thank you everybody for tuning in to this week's news live stream. Apologies for not doing one last week. It was a pretty rough week, so we ended up just kind of taking a little break there. And apologies, of course, for the webcam part. I just had to, unplug it and plug it back in, and it works. So again, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're watching us on Facebook and you're not following our page here on Facebook, just make sure to hit that like button there. Make sure you're hitting the follow button as well, though, too. So you see our posts when they come in. You can check out our podcast. That's really the main meat of this page itself, too, and of this group. We're on anchor.fm/the-npcs-podcast. You can find us on all these different platforms like Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, several others out there, too. If you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell there. Otherwise, if you're watching on Facebook, head over to YouTube and hit that notification and subscription button there, and you can check out all the videos we put up so far. You can check us out when we get our new stuff up there too. But yeah, go ahead and help us out that way. All of this, the likes, the comments, the subscription stuff, interacting with us really helps us out as we're still building our brand. And we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary actually the next couple weeks. So be on the lookout for some stuff there too. Again, Kyle, thank you for joining me this evening. As always, sir, I appreciate it.
For sure.
All right. And everybody, again, we will catch you all later. Thanks again.